Good morning. How are you glowing? So, I just wanted to do a video to kind of reflect on where I was this time last year. I'm talking really low because it's 6 o'clock in the morning. It's like 5:52, 5:50 or something in the morning. And this has been a video this is a topic that has been on my heart for the past week because I've really been reflecting on my life. And I know that it's God that's just showing me this because I don't know why, but usually around holiday times, everybody is getting in the mood of gift giving and family and exchanging time and love and money and all this stuff. And you start to turn within yourself and you start to think about things that you would rather not think about. So, for instance, like the thoughts of, buying things for my children for Christmas and their birthdays are coming up, and then you look at your bank account and you're just like, oh, I don't, the negativity starts to pop in, and just my attempts of trying to find a job that works around my family's schedule without me working to give half of or majority of my check to daycare. Just how the holidays are. People get in this place of like depression and they reflect on the negativity and all this stuff. And I find that is where my thoughts are trying to go. Because you start to think about like, why am I in the same place here in this area of my life again this year? Or why am I going through this same thing again this year around this time? So specifically for me, I think my thoughts have been like personally, and then thinking about my personal life, it always goes to the material part of my life. And this time last year, I was a mess. And I was going through this time like my husband had just left for Georgia. Not just left because it was October last year, but it was all of a sudden, He was asked to come up there and do a paint job for a family member, and then it turned into him trying to stay to find work or whatever, and it was sudden, and I wasn't prepared for it mentally, emotionally, financially, for him to go do this and stay there. So at this moment, I felt so much anxiety because he was leaving me. And I've never been apart from my husband like this, where he's left me with the kids and he's going to stay somewhere for a extended time, or we would be together. So what happened is that God had to take him away from me. I always say God had to take him away from me to show me what was really going on in my life, how I had made my husband my God, how I had put him on a pedestal above God. My dependence was in my husband. My everything was in my husband. My identity was in him. So every move that I made, every thought that I had, everything that I was going through was all about my husband. What he wasn't doing, what he was doing, just everything that was going on with me, I had put in my husband, or my identity was in him, because every move my husband made determined my moves, my life, how things would go in certain areas. So God took him away, and God had to strip me down completely, like 100%. I was a mess, and I couldn't understand why I was such a mess. Like, I felt like a part of me had left, like physically a part of my heart. I was in pain, and I'm like, my soul was gone. And God was pretty much showing me that, Crystal, your spirit, your mind, your soul, everything belongs to me. And you know he was showing me that you have put so much in your husband that you can't even function for yourself, and you don't even realize it, that you're not even living your own life for yourself. So this year, as I was reflecting, God had been showing me how far I had really come, because I was starting to allow my thoughts and all of this stuff to be caught up in the material part of my life, because I want more. And then, of course, I don't want to let my children down. It's the holidays, you need money to do everything. And I realized that I had come so far just personally in my spiritual life, my emotional life, my mental state. I have come so far in a year. And I'm thankful to God that I actually have come this far. It's not about how much money I have. It's not about what car I drive. It's not about where I live. It's about my personal state, because if I am able to control myself, my mind, my heart, my soul, and plus be able to give it all to God for Him to have control over me, then all of that stuff will come when I'm able to stay in front of God. Not in front of my husband, not in front of my parents, not in front of anybody else. Because when I do that, then I find myself trying to please people and not God. And God asks us, who are we doing these things for? Are we doing it for man, or are we doing it for God? And God has shown me that I was doing everything for man, for my husband, for my parents, and just setting myself up for failure. That was allowing the enemy to come in and plant more and more seeds and do things in my life and just mess with my mind and my heart. And this is a testimony, because when I thought that I hadn't really done anything in the past year, God showed me how my heart and my mind and how my spiritual life has grown. And to me, that's more important than anything. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm perfect, because I still think about things. I still worry about some things. I still want things, but I give all of that to God, and I go before Him. I don't go to my husband and say, what should I do about my career? That's not something my husband is supposed to tell me. I'm not supposed to follow the lead of my husband when it comes to my career, because to me, career is caught up in purpose, and purpose is the perfect will of God. So if I'm worried about moves to make concerning my life, I go to God first, not my husband first. Because in the past, I would go to my husband, and my husband would say something, and I would go through with it. Instead of being obedient to God, I was being obedient to my husband. Instead of being obedient to God, I was being obedient to my parents or anybody else that could come speak into my life, and I would think that that was the right way to go. So I'm just so thankful, and I wanted to share this because when we think that we haven't done anything in our lives because we're not holding the material things, the physical, tangible things, like I'm holding this coffee, a car key, we start to think about, like I said, the car that we drive. Right now, I'm driving a 2005 Chevy Aveo. The paint is like the car is sunburned. It's red and it's loud. And my daughter, my 4-year-old daughter, we were driving, and she said it sounds like a duck is following us. So, but the thing about that is that that car was given to me. I didn't have to really take any money out of my pocket to get this car. I needed transportation, and that was the way that God provided for me right now. Is that God's perfect will? No, because I believe that God's perfect will is for me to be driving my Range Rover. So this is the acceptable will of God, but I want His perfect will. And the acceptable will is when I settle and I accept things and I just do things to get by, and it's like accepting it. When I want excellence, I want perfection as close as I can get to it, and that's God and what He has for me. That's His perfect will. So the perfect will of God is a Range Rover for me. But when I get that Range Rover, I want my mind, body, and soul to be in alignment with God. So when I'm driving this Range Rover, I don't have this attitude of I made it, or I don't have this thought of me being better than anybody else. I want God to completely do what He has to do for me in that area of my life. So then He can give me the wealth. He can give me the dream car, the dream home. He can give me millions in my bank account, because my heart and my soul and my mind and my spirit is in alignment with Him. And God has shown me that I have really grown in those areas. And He's still working on me with my attitude. But when I tell y'all that I've come so far in the past year, because like I said, this time last year, I was a mess. I had no choice but to get before God, because I did not know what to do. I was at a place where, it was painful. And God had to strip me and work on me and mold me. And He's still doing the work, because I still, have areas where I resist, or I still have times where I resist, or I still have times where I find myself trying to go seek the answer from a person instead of Him. So yes, I'm still a work in progress. But guess what? Now I know how to really go before God. I really know how to capture my thoughts before they get too far away from me. I know how to bring myself back when I want to go to my husband or somebody else and say, what should I do with this, or what should I do with that? I'm not supposed to go to this person unless I know for sure God has sent this person, or He told me to go to this person and ask them for wise counsel. I should not be going to anybody that cannot give me wise counsel. And I'm so grateful just for my mindset alone. And when you really understand this, what I'm saying, when you really can say that you've grown, when you really can say that you've overcome some things, when you can really say that, oh, I don't do that anymore, or I know how to handle that, that is growth. That's because I am seeking God, and I am learning each and every day how to get before Him more and more, and really seek Him first and believe and have the faith that He got it. I trust Him. The same way that I was putting my trust in my husband. I put so much trust in my husband that I put my life in his hands. I put my identity in my husband's hands. And that is not what I was supposed to do. That's failure. I had put some expectations on my husband and my parents or whoever else that only God can fulfill for me. And as a wife, that is so important. As a mother, being in alignment with God mentally and emotionally, spiritually is so important, because we are going to deal with things that if we're not in the right place, we won't know how to deal with it. We won't know what to do, and then we'll be expecting our husbands, or we'll make our children our gods, or whatever. We'll turn to something else other than God for comfort. We'll go to something else other than God for comfort. We'll go to, we'll just turn to different things. And plus, I have another testimony about that. Just a couple months ago, something that I went through where I was turning away from God, like for real, like, and I was finding comfort in something else. And if I had kept going, it could have controlled me. And yeah. So I'm thankful to God for His grace and His mercy. I'm thankful that he never left me. I am thankful that he speaks to me. I'm thankful for his presence. I'm thankful for the fact that I do know him, because you have so many people out there that don't know God, that don't believe in God, that don't trust God. You have people out there that they don't realize the power that they have in them, but we can only recognize that power if we get to know who God is, because God is the ultimate creator. He knew us before we were in our mother's wombs. He knew what he wanted to do with our lives. Like, he created us for that specific reason. He didn't create us to come and find our hope in somebody on this earth. He didn't create us to come find our identities and our worth in somebody on this earth. He created us to bring heaven here on earth. He created us to make disciples. He created us to do the one, it may not be one thing, but he created us to do something so specific that that's the only thing that we should be seeking. And that's all that I'm doing. And when I tell you guys that this is probably one of the hardest fights that I've ever had, it is, because I was in control, or what I thought was control. I thought that the way that I was living my life, I had control over my life, and I didn't, because I was doing it all wrong. And then when you come to the realization that your plan is not working, the fight to release it is strong. So but God is so good. God is so good. He is. And how could somebody love me so much that they have a perfect plan for my life? And when you hear perfect plan, I don't hear negative things in that. So the scripture that I've been meditating on is, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and all of these things shall be added unto you. And if you read that entire scripture, Matthew 6, he tells us not to worry about anything, because he's our provider, he's our hope. He has everything that we need. He tells us, do not worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about what we shall eat or drink. Because he provides for the birds, and he provides for everything that lives outside, right? But we don't think about it in that way. He provides for them everything that they need, the birds that fly. But we're over here worried about the things that we need and how we're going to get it and what we're going to do and all of this stuff. And he tells us don't worry, because he got us. He has me, and God has shown me in this past year that he has had my back. He had to take extreme measures because I wasn't seeking him like I should have been, but he'll do what he has to do to bring us back, because he loves us so much. So he'll have to put us through things. We'll have to suffer consequences because of our choices. But through that time, God reveals himself and says, okay, it's time for you to come back to me, because you are about to mess up the plan that I have for your life. He loves us that much. If you think about people that you put your dependence in, or people that you're seeking for things, you go to them and say, okay, what should I do? Or, you might mess up something with someone that you love very much, and you go to them and you say, what can I do? What can I do to make it better? What can I do? I'm sorry. And they just push you down in the dirt and leave you there. God doesn't do that to us. And you probably can think about how many people that you have talked to, or people you've known that have done that to you, just leave you hanging and the relationship ends or whatever. But God doesn't do that to us. God says, okay, come back to me. I'm always here. I never leave your side. I love you so much. And yes, your purpose is still here. You still have a purpose to fulfill. So come on, let's do this. And the only way we can do that is if we get before God. And honestly, y'all, a year ago, this time, November, there's no way I could get on this and even talk about something like this or even say how far I've come, because I was I was in the deepest, darkest hole ever. And it had gotten so bad until I knew that the only way that I could get out of this is if I get before God. God was my only option. And it still took me a little bit of time after that. But I'm thankful for that situation. I'm thankful for the circumstances. I'm thankful for the way that things happen, because God always works everything together for our good. So even when we're blaming the enemy, or the enemy is attacking us, or we're going through hardship and we're going through things that we just can't seem to get through, God works everything together for our good. So I'm here and I'm able to talk to you about this and give you my testimony that there is hope, that if you feel like your life is out of control or people are just doing you so horrible, guess what? You can't look to people. God is your hope. God has everything that you need. And when you seek him and say, yes, Lord, I want the perfect will, then he'll start doing all of these awesome things in your life. He'll put everything in alignment. He'll remove the people. He'll bring people. He'll provide. His provision and his favor is all that I want. But I have to stay before him in prayer. I have to fast. I have to do whatever I need to do, not only for me, for my husband, for my marriage, for my children, for my future, my children, my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, my legacy, period. I have things to slay for in my life, so that my children don't have to deal with this. But when we're so caught up in our minds, we're allowing the enemy to just cloud everything out and make us forget that we have a purpose. And he makes us feel all this pain, and we go through all this hardship by choice. Then we forget these things. We forget that we're here to do something that is going to impact the next generation. That's our purpose. That's our ultimate purpose. We have to make an impact now. And I mean an impact that is planted so deep. The roots are so deep that from generations to generation to generation, it can't be uprooted. Meaning that I'm slaying what I need to slay right now. So when my children walk in purpose, they don't have to slay what I was supposed to slay. That when my children's children walk into purpose, they don't have to slay what my children were supposed to slay plus what I was supposed to slay. They'll have to suffer. They have to work so much harder for what it is that they're supposed to do with their lives. So we got to get our minds right as women, as wives, as mothers, as business owners, as daughters of God, daughters and sons of God. We have to get our minds right. And the only way we can get our minds right is if we get before God. We are made in the image of Christ, and his thoughts are not our thoughts, and his ways are not our ways. Meaning, I only want God's ways. I only want his thoughts. And God doesn't dwell on negativity. He doesn't look at other people and say, oh, I wonder what they think of me. Oh, I wonder what they think I should do. No. Oh, I wonder what they'll say. God doesn't care about any of that stuff. So why should I? I only care about what he says about me. That he loves me unconditionally. That he has forgotten all of my sins. That he has a perfect plan and will for me. That he has the battle conquered already for me. All I have to do is walk in victory. So this is my testimony. So when you feel down and out, especially around these holiday season times, this is when people get depressed and feeling like they can't provide materially. It's not about material things. And I also want to encourage you, like, if you know you can't provide materially, you feel like you don't have your material needs, get out of that mindset, because guess what? When you leave this earth, you're leaving all this material stuff behind. Not saying that God doesn't want you to live and enjoy things on this earth, But first, you have to enjoy the thoughts that God has something great for you. And then you have to be so overwhelmed by the fact that God has a perfect plan for me and that's all that I want. Because we can get all these material things and still not be happy. That's the case with the rich people. Like, rich people get all of the things that they want and they're still not happy. Why? It's an inner thing. It's an inner thing. So this is just my testimony, and I hope it can encourage you